Going to start the meeting and I'll be reading the introduction. So I'd like to start Tuesday, May 19th at 7:05 p.m. As chairman of the Budget Review Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing WebEx through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. All members of the Budget Review Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen to the meeting through dialing in the following number: 1-978-990-5298 and using the password 273974. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. We're providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashua's website at www.nashua.nh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall. A mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. Adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting will be done by roll call. We'll start the meeting by taking the roll call of attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, whether you can hear what the meeting as it's being aired, and this is all under the right to know law. Alderman O'Brien, if you would please call the roll.
Alderwoman at Large, Shoshana Kelly.
I am here. I can hear everyone. And I am attending remotely due to the governor's order.
Alderman at Large, Michael O'Brien is present. I can hear the proceedings and I am alone. Alderman at Large, Laurie Wilshire.
I am here, I am alone, and I am here at home due to the governor's order to stay home.
Alderman Ernest Jetty.
I'm here, I can hear you, and I'm alone in the room.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I am here, hear you, and I'm alone except for my parrot.
Alderman at Large, Ben Clemens.
I am here, I am by myself, and I am participating because of the governor's order via
Alderman at Large, Alderman Richard Dow, not chairman.
Thank you. Always trying to promote me.
Yeah,
So yes, I can hear everyone. I am alone and I'm practicing social distancing in accordance with the governor's direction. Okay.
Also present, Mr. Chairman, are
Yes.
Alderman Clee, Alderman Harriet Gathright, and Alderman Lou. Are there any other aldermen present that I have not called? Seeing none. Mr. Chairman, also in attendance is Dr. Jamal Mosley, Superintendent of the National School Department, Board of Education President, Heather Raymond, and Ray Griano, if I pronounce it, excuse me, who is a member of the Board of Education. Also in attendance is Director Kim Kleiner.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we have a quorum. So next item on the agenda is communications.
There are none.
Okay. Unfinished business. There is none. New business resolutions. Alderman O'Brien. You're on mute. That's
Somebody
better.
come in. Yeah. Okay, I didn't put myself on mute. Something happened. All right. Also before us this evening is R-20-037, authorizing the city of Nashua to enter into a contract with Sauhegan Valley Transportation Collaborative for transit services. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion for final passage by roll call.
Okay, the motion is to recommend final passage of O-20-037. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Clevens.
Yeah, we actually should have discussion first.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
That was going to be my note.
Yeah, I was just, before I was starting to write thing down, I go, wait a minute. Okay, so any discussion on R-20-037? Alderman Kelly, and then Alderman Wilshire.
Is there anyone here to discuss this, either from the mayor's office or just like a quick overview of it?
Director Kleiner, are you able to answer those questions? You're on mute.
Oh, this isn't the same thing I was thinking about. I thought this was something that had an increase to it. I have it. So it says it's just local
Yeah.
matching funds.
Presumably there's somebody on from community development too. Is there anybody that can talk to this? Or is this something we need to put off to another meeting?
If I could, Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Jettie.
I'm the liaison to the National Transit,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't pretend to have intimate knowledge of all the details, but I think this is just a renewal of a contract that has been ongoing, and it's a contract we have
Yes.
with the
I
Sauhegan.
can try to answer the questions.
Okay.
Who's
Stop.
that? Kim? Director Kleiner? Was that you that was? Whoever's talking, we can't hear them. I see Director Kleiner, you're unmuted, but we're not hearing anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
And what was Alderwoman Kelly's question?
I was just looking for a quick rundown of what this was, if it was a renewal or a matching fund, just a
Alright,
quick
I sent you like a
overview.
below there. Did you see it?
Yeah, no, once we get Paul
No.
on the page now.
Oh.
I know that.
All right. So you go all the way down, right? And it says join meeting.
Dr. Mosley is unmuted.
I can see.
Right. Director Mosley, you got to mute yourself.
On.
There you go. All right. Try this again. Director Kleiner?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. So can you just give us an overview of the purpose of this legislation? We think it's just the renewal of something that's been ongoing.
Okay, you're referring to the legislation for community development?
It's for the authorizing the city of Nashua and in contract with the Sauhegan Valley Transportation Collaborative for Transit Services.
Yes. I'm sorry, I can't speak to that particular piece of legislation. We can try to get you someone from transit or community development to specifically speak to it if you'd like.
We can,
You want me to hold or call you? You want to call?
we can probably, there's no signatures on it, and we can probably wait till the next budget meeting. If there's no urgency on it. I haven't heard from anyone that says there's anything urgent on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
thank you. I'm willing to give Alderman Jettie, where he is a liaison and evidently was present at the meeting, an opportunity to perhaps at this moment, through you, the chair, if agreed, to speak on it. If we find it unsatisfactory and in need of more information, then I have no objection to wait until the next meeting. But at least maybe Alderman Jettie might be able to put additional light for now on it.
Well, we'll let Alderman Jettie give us an overview, and then Alderman Wilshire had a question. And then if there are no additional questions, we can try to take action on it. I've read the contract. I didn't see anything out of the whack on it. Alderman Jettie?
So as I understand it, this is a renewal of an ongoing contract between Nashua Transit and the Sauhegan Valley Transportation Collaborative, by which Nashua Transit is able to obtain additional money from Sauhegan in order to provide transportation services to, paratransit service. So people who are qualified for paratransit, can call and arrange trips to social service appointments, and other necessary activities. It's a source of income for Nashua Transit, and we have the capacity to provide that. So it's a win-win situation for Nashua Transit and for people in the Sauhegan area who need that service.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Wilshire, you still have a question?
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. I believe that's true, and I think what Alderman Jettie said is accurate, that I think this is a continuation of a contract that's currently in place, and it's for paratransit services that they don't have the capacity for out there in the surrounding towns that this serves. So I think it's important to have this. I don't know if it's time sensitive, but it's the match. It's the matching money for this contract. So I think it's a good idea to pass it, but if anybody has questions that we can't answer, I'd certainly be okay with tabling it, but.
Are there any additional questions? If there's no objection, then I will have Alderman O'Brien take the roll call vote for final passage recommendation to the full board. And we'll have another opportunity when it's at the full board level to ask additional questions if there are any. Alderman Kelly?
I think we've cobbled together an answer, and I'm willing to support this, but I am continually, the work is supposed to be done in the committees, and I want to make sure legislation doesn't come through without someone to talk to them.
And I would think the only one that could add an additional reference would be somebody from a corporate counsel's office relative to the contract. But it's a pretty simple contract, and it's a renewal, so it's pretty much the same as we've had, if not identical, years past. And we can find out additional information before the full Board of Aldermen meeting if anybody has additional questions.
Alderman Dowd? I'm
Yes.
sorry, this is Sarah Marchand. I just got on. I heard there was a question. I'd be happy to try and answer them. I apologize for being late.
Sarah, excellent. We're talking about, we were just about to take a final roll call vote on R20-037. Alderman Jettie gave us sort of an overview. It's a renewal of an existing contract.
Yes.
And if you want to add any additional information before we vote,
No, that would be it. This is the contract that is a subcontract where we serve all of our surrounding towns from Wilton through Hudson with, sorry, not Hudson, but all the way over Amherst, Hollis, Brookline, as far as Wilton Lineborough now. And we provide non-emergency medical visits, shopping trips, and the basics like to Walmart and the grocery store.
Hello?
Mr. Donovan, you're not on mute.
I'm in now. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes. Hi, Director Marchand. Thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it. I actually just have a question about if this service is actually being more used in crisis, and are you going to be okay with the current contract if this continues?
It's a great question. It has actually been less used. It's largely a senior population that uses this in the more rural areas. And I do believe it will pick up greatly, but I think a lot of people have canceled non-emergency medical trips at this point. And I believe people are being, you're only going to the grocery store. So we're still making grocery store trips. We used to make some hairdressing trips too. And just the real decrease, I think, has been the non-emergency medical, with so many people staying home and being safe that way. We do very much expect it to continue. I do expect a drop in revenue, though, as part of this kind of coming contract. And this transit system, and both actually the SBTC contractor, have been able to access federal dollars that were distributed via the CARES Act, specifically to support transportation. SBTC has access to dollars that we don't get. It's a different kind of federal dollars because they operate differently than we do. And so we do have an ability to make the contract whole.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All set, Alderwoman Kelly? Yeah, I do know it's a source of revenue, and there's an hourly charge for. I would expect it in the short term anyway that the revenues will be down. Any other questions relative to R2027? 037 rather. Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can you indulge me for 1 second for a clerk's moment? I recognize Ann Donovan from the school department has joined the meeting at 7:21. Clerk will now call the roll. Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yea.
That's passed and will be referred to the full Board of Aldermen with a positive recommendation for final passage. New business ordinances?
There are none.
Okay. Tabled in committee, we are not going to address any of these except the budget this evening. Tonight, we are going to be reviewing the education budget, but would Alderman O'Brien, do you have a motion to take it off the table?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to remove from the table Resolution R-20-023 relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds by roll call. The public is also reminded that there will be a public hearing scheduled for 5/20/2020 at 7 p.m. via WebEx.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, R 20-023 is removed from the table, and tonight we'll be reviewing Department 191, the school budget. Appropriations are on page 243. Just for people that are new, the budget is in the budget book, is for all intents and purposes, the superintendent's budget that was given to the Board of Education. The Board of Education now has their budget, which is coming before us this evening. Mr. Donovan is going to be giving us a comprehensive briefing on exactly how that budget is structured. And he's going to share his screen in a minute and run through the pages. He's asked that we let him go through the entire presentation first. And then if you would write your questions down, we'll address the questions after he's done his presentation. Also, just for informational purposes, when we come to the wrap up, the Board of Education budget is different than any other part of the city budget in that when we come up with a bottom line number for the Board of Education's budget, we provide that once the budget's approved, whatever we approve, that number of dollars goes to the Board of Education. In the control of Mr. Donovan, and we have no control over the individual line items. If you have questions about line items, you can ask them. You could even make motions. However, the Board of Education does not have to follow any guidance they get on particular line items from the Board of Aldermen. They have final say and control over their budget once we give it to them. That being said, we will start the proceedings off with Superintendent Mosley. You're on mute. That's better. Oh, you're back on mute. You're still on mute. There you go. I can hear you now.
All right. So good evening to the folks of Nashua, the citizens of Nashua. My name is Dr. Jamal Mosley, Superintendent of the Nashua Public Schools. I don't see Dan Donovan's presentation, but I do have it right here in front of me. So
well,
go ahead.
Mr. Donovan's on. Mr. Donovan, do you know how to share your screen?
I do with Zoom. I was having such a hard time with this. The only way I could get on was I had to get out of everything. So now my guess is I'm gonna lose you if I go and try to open to share the screen.
You shouldn't. All you have to do is click on the presentation, share your screen, which is if you go into.
Well, let me try to open it again.
There's a thing up the top that
There's a
says
share in the top left. There should be share. There should be some on the top left of your screen. It should say share.
Yeah, it goes file, edit, share.
But the issue that I have is it's only saved on the network, and I can't get into the network. I didn't save it on my PC, so the presentation is on the school network, and I can't get back in there. That's how I was trying to get into the meeting, and it wouldn't let me in unless I get out of the school network and get in on my personal network.
All right. Where's the screen? Where is the shared?
Up at the top. On the left-hand side at the top, it says file, edit, and share.
File, edit, and share. Left-hand side?
Yeah, on the top.
I see a budget review.
Mr. Chairman, Alderman O'Brien, if I may.
Yes.
If Dr. Mosley looks where he mute and unmute yourself on the microphone, you have the the recorder button, and then the next thing with the TV screen with an arrow pointing up. That is
Yep.
also the share feature.
That's also share, yep. Share
So
content.
if you click that, it'll give you, the option. It'll bring up another window that you could take a look at to share if you have that in front of you.
Whatever is on your screen will be shared to the rest of us.
All right, okay. I'm sensitive about this stuff because I do have sensitive material on my computer. That's why.
Oh, well.
Make sure I share the right.
If,
My
if,
computer.
if it's on your computer screen, it's all we'll see.
All right. Hold on 1 second. All right.
There it is.
There it is. That's fine. We can still see you, and now we can see your presentation.
You can see this?
So you can talk, yes. So I don't know who's got their phone on and it's ringing, but please go mute. All right, so you can go right there, or you can hit the presentation and it'll be larger, but I'm sure everybody can read it.
So I can't see what screen's being shared.
It's the screen that's being shared has the presentation for the National School District FY 2021 budget process. So now you just switch to page 2. All right, so that's being shown.
It's the PowerPoint.
Okay. All right. So good. I'll just we'll run through this and then we'll be done. All right. So let me just thank you for everyone for taking the time this evening to take a look at our budget. This is FY21 for the National Public Schools. It was approved by the Board of Education Board of Education. It says May 19th, but I think it was sometime it was actually 2 weeks ago. It was approved by the Board of Education. Okay, couple things. One of the things that we look for our, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm used to Zoom, so this is a little bit of a different format for us. Looking this way because that's where the screen is, so I apologize to the public.
That's no problem.
Part of what we were looking at for this particular budget is that we wanted to make sure anything that we advocated for was aligned to our strategic plan. As you recall, we had our strategic plan that we spent quite some time, over a year, developing and getting feedback from the public and from our teachers and from our administrators on how to move the district forward. We recognize that the environment in terms of finance has changed due to COVID-19, and certainly we've made some adjustments to it. The mayor made a recommendation of a 2.25 increase in our budget. Originally, we came up with a 2.8 and some change, but due to the financial situation that the city is in right now and our country is in right now, we certainly had to be prudent, but yet advocating for our needs. So you'll see in this budget, we increased special education services to meet the needs of our students. Again, for the public, we are very concerned and focused on our ELL population. It continues to grow as our students are needing more support, as we have over 68 different languages being spoken here in Nashua. We also started 3 years ago for full-day kindergarten, and part of that is that we wanted to make sure there was equity in those programs. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough para-educator support, not just in one of our kindergarten programs, but district-wide. One of the things that we also are committed to is not attracting, but also retaining highly qualified educators to be part of our learning community. We don't want to make investments over 5 to 6 years with our teachers for professional development, certification, teacher training. We want to make sure we continue to do that, but we also want to make sure that we retain them. And that's by providing a stable environment for our teachers. That means that they're not wondering whether they have a job or not. They're also, for our teachers and educators and for our staff, we want to make sure that we compensate them well in terms of the market value. Maintain current staff force, and that's what this budget does. I thank the public, I thank the mayor, I thank the aldermen for their support on that. Right. Next slide. Is that you, Dan?
Yes, it is. Okay, so this slide is basically defining what the current year we're in now, the fiscal year 20 base. So the current year now, the amount that the Board of Education approved was the 112 million. Once the Board of Education approves that, we send it over to City Hall. They add all the benefits and the pension. That number's 39 million in the current year's budget. They take out any small, it's not that large. And so you'll notice that the school budget per the city was 150,992 in the current year. Just slide it down. Could I say next, and then we'll do it that way?
Yep.
Okay. So the overall budget increase, the 2.25 that the superintendent mentioned and that the mayor suggests, that percentage is based upon the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Education piece, which does not include the benefits. The benefits are added together by the whole city, and I think the mayor explained the significant increase in benefits. But ignoring the benefits, the increase that the school budget currently has now is 2.25%. And you can see we were 112 million this year. We're proposing 114.6. That's an increase of 2.5 million or 2.25%. And just to let you know, if we were simply to roll our budget forward from one year to the next, where we would simply add in contracts that are already in place, deal with cost increases, the cost of that would be 1.7 million. So really the amount of sort of new items, net of plus and minus, is about 800,000. Next, please. Okay, so I break that 114 million into two pieces. There's the salary and then the non-salary items. As you can see, of that 114 million, this year's budget and fiscal year 21's budget is $89.8 million. So the increase in just the salary accounts is 1.4 million. That amount, the 89 million, is about 78% of the total Board of Education budget. So the increase of 78% of the budget is 1.62%. That's the increase piece related to salaries and those types of accounts. Next, please. Okay, so then I just give you an idea of which salary accounts the increases are, and it's pretty evident that it's all in wages for full and part-time employees. We do have a number of other wage accounts, like covers substitutes, and we have overtime, we have a lot of other longevity, a lot of other accounts. Those actually decreased 112,000. The increase in the salary accounts is all in just the basic wages, part and full-time. Next, please. Okay, so the non-labor piece, the other piece of that 114 million in this budget is $24 million. So the other 22% of that 114 million is that 24 million. There's an increase in those accounts, non-labor ones, of $1,085,000. So that piece percentage-wise went up a lot more, but since it's only 22% of the budget, the net amount of the 4.58 and the 1.6 in labor nets to the 2.25. Next, please. Okay, so this slide shows where some of the more significant increases are in the non-labor costs. The largest item by far is the transportation, which is mostly our first student bus contract. The contract ended at the end. It ends at the end of this school year in June of 2020. We went out for bid this winter. We received 3 bids from the 3 large bus companies. There are 3 companies that I would define as national bus companies. They all bid, and the contract winner was the incumbent first student. The board still has to approve a few things, but the increase that we had to pay in year 1 of this contract is 5.75%. Now, that's a fairly significant percent increase. We've been paying about 3% increases, but this terminal, it's a Teamsters union that are the people that drive the buses. They signed, first student and the Teamsters signed a contract for a significant increase in driver pay. I think with the main intention that there's a driver shortage nationwide. So this was a way to say, okay, we're going to pay the drivers out of our terminal more money. They're going to be making, starting this coming school year, $25 an hour. So to do that, they have, since the biggest piece of a bus contract is labor and benefits, then they had to increase. Since they also deal with the union on a regular basis, their increases were 14 and 15% in the first year. So despite this being almost 6%, it's about a third of what the other 2 companies offered. So there's probably not a whole lot we're going to be able to do with it. The hope is that we will have a lot more drivers going forward, and we won't have any driver shortages when we get back to the regular world. Support services was up 18,000. That's basically 2 contracts for special ed, one for the OT/PT services and one for a hearing device contract for our students hard of hearing. The contract service line is up 42,000. 23,000 of that is planned operations expenses. Some of those 23,000 are contracts that we do every 3 years. So they'll bump up and bump down. And the other 20,000 was for a Power Scholar program, which was our summer school program. That might end up, we're probably going to do something virtually with that, so that cost may not actually end up happening this year. The next line is copier maintenance. Basically, we purchase our copiers, and then there's a cost per print. And there's been we've been getting a lot more textbooks. Instead of buying the textbooks, we're buying sort of a workbook and things like that, but it's producing more prints internally. So that's 13,000. So that gives us a more realistic cost of what we've been running. We've run over that line the last couple of years. And the next one, telephone, same thing. I budgeted that lower. I thought with the new phone system, we would get a decrease. We've yet to see the decrease. I'm still convinced we can find one, but I'm budgeting the number realistic of what it's run the last couple of years. Computer software, the 12,597 there, that is simply just increases in current software. We're not adding new software to schools. It's just an increase in pricing. And the miscellaneous equipment shows 54,900. The reality of that is it's not it's an increase in that specific account, but really what most of it is it's the schools taking their budget dollars that we allocate to them and budgeting more of their money in miscellaneous equipment than they had in the past. decrease, it doesn't necessarily increase the full budget. Next, please. Okay, significant line item reductions. I wish we had more of them, but the first one is other contracted services. There was a line item in this budget the last 2 years where we didn't spend this $20,000. It was put in a couple years ago. To be honest with you, I don't exactly remember what it was put in for, but it was never spent. So I eliminated it from the budget this year. Our medical supplies has gone down versus last year. Last year was artificially high because we bought $20,000 worth of tourniquets as part of our new safety program that we were working with the police department. So we supplied tourniquets for each and every school. So that's mostly what that decrease is. And the computer equipment line is down 111,000. Now, what we did, that was part of the way we reached the 2.25% that the mayor had requested. The plan here is that we will use some of the one-time funds, which we'll talk about a little later, coming down from the state, and we'll spend a little bit, another 100,000 or so on the computer equipment. So the computer equipment line at the school district will be replaced, but using a different funding source. Next. Okay, so then we just sort of breaking out what the new significant costs are in this budget. The first one is, as I mentioned before, the transportation costs. That's a total of about 410,000 in this budget, due to the fact that the first year's increase is 5.75%. Next, please.
So for this slide, this budget, we added a ELL teacher. As I mentioned earlier, we are for our full day kindergarten program, we added 4 paraeducators to work with our kindergartners. Special ed, we still have to provide services and support for our kids. Our kids some of our kids have challenges, and they have challenges around their social emotional growth. And so we added a school psychologist to our budget. We have our special education students that need speech and language support as well. These services are required by law, and either we contract them out or we pay for them for our kids. If you notice where it says SP, that's part of that. SP stands for our strategic plan. I just want the public and the aldermen to know that when we were constructing our proposal for our budget, we didn't just do it out of the top of our heads. We looked at our strategic plan. We followed that as a guide, and we made those recommendations based on our plan. I just would like to note too that sometimes, particularly around special ed and the ELL, those are variables that we cannot control. We don't know if a special education student's moving into the district or transitioning out to a district. We also don't know that for our ELL population as well. So there is a level of flexibility that we do have to have an understanding as well. Moment can be fluid. Also proposed for our middle school intensive needs programs, what we found that there are kids who were in intensive need programs at our elementary schools, but when they came to our middle schools, there wasn't that level of support. So we propose adding some teachers to that program, to develop a program at our middle schools to support those kids with a paraprofessional. We also propose having another special education program in our middle schools, in our elementary schools as well. So those are 2 new programs that we're looking to support in this budget as well. We also, for our elementary schools, we wanted to make sure that all of our elementary schools have a full-time assistant principal. So right now, all of our elementary schools have a full-time assistant principal except at Broad Street and New Searles. And so with this budget, it brings equity throughout the entire district. We also, in our strategic plan, excuse me, let me just back up. That was part of our strategic plan as well. In our strategic plan, we talked a lot about expanding our communication, but expanding it in a way that is different. And I say different. If you go on our website now, we have actually changed our website to be more user friendly. But we also have had new features to our websites, and all these new features, all of these new products come at a cost of someone managing that. And so our technology department, in partnership with our communications department, that would be Stacy Hines and Yeti, they have worked on expanding our communication. And I still believe that we can improve that in a way where we want to reach every single student and family in the city of Nashua. So we are looking to really expand not our social media piece, but also just our outreach. And so in our strategic plan, we really felt that that was a need to continue to advocate for and to make sure that we reach those families. So, you know, in addition to creating just not newsletters, but we want to do more. We want to do newsletters. We want to make sure that we are shooting videos and information that reach all of our families, and that involves shooting and recording and distributing in multiple languages. And we are improving on that. I always believe that we can certainly get better with that. These were items. This is the hardest part about a budget. It's the hardest part because I think that we could add all of these items into this. And when we started off this journey, I don't see an item here that we did not want. But at the same time, we had to stay within the limits of the recommendation coming from the city. And so these were items that we were not able to put into place. And putting items like this into place means that they have to be sustainable. So you'll see these items pop up again sometime next year. We do believe that we can expand our middle school alternative program for our kids. At some point, we are looking to divide up. This has nothing to do with Bob Chopra. I'll say it 100 times. He's fine. He's a very good man. He does great work. Bob Chopra is he wears many hats. He is the director of student services. He's a director of ELL. He supervises the nurses. He also coordinates the homeless liaison, and he is part of my brother's keeper. About 5 hats. And so part of what we would like to do down the road is to have him take off one of those hats and just create a director of ELL. We've heard many times around our middle school athletic teams that they do need that level of support for middle school extracurricular. Right now, we just offer I'd say the A team, you know, but certainly we'd like to offer more supports for our kids who don't quite qualify for what we would consider the varsity team at the middle school, but certainly like a B team. Dan, could you speak to my flex share and school radios and batteries? I think that's more maintenance on your part.
Sure. The My Flex Share was a software from the high school. So basically, we took it out of the operating budget and told the high schools that if they'd like to use some of their allocated funds, that they could use that instead. So we'll see if they end up doing it. And then the last item, school radios, batteries. At most of our schools, there's a communication where we purchased for the superintendents and the head custodian, a few other people, that they have a radio so they have a way of contacting each other while they're in the school. We purchased about 7 years ago, all brand new items. What we were thinking about here was starting a new line item in the budget whereby we'd put some money in each year. So we'd start replacing either the radios or the batteries themselves. As you can see, it's not a lot of money. So the hope is that we'll find money somewhere else during the year in the budget to take care of that.
You could just bring it home, Dan, if you'd like.
Okay. All right, so basically, the summary of what we just talked about as far as new costs, there's the cost of the bus contract, there's the paras and the school-based personnel, the special ed personnel, the new programs at the middle and elementary school, and then the administrative positions. And that's a total of 17 new staff, and the total, including the bus, is $967,000. I guess the last thing I'll mention, if actually we'll look at this slide quick. You can see what the various requests were from fiscal year 16 through this year, the amount that we requested, and then the amount that was eventually approved by the Board of Aldermen. And before I finish, to get from the 2.81 to the 2.25, that was a $628,000 reduction. And the way we got there was we had previously had in the budget 3 assistant principals at the middle schools. So they've been put off for future years. There was we also put off the hire of an assistant superintendent of recruitment and development. I mentioned earlier the $110,000 of computer hardware that we're going to purchase through the one-time funds instead. And we reduced our summer school costs by about $40,000 because we're going to be going virtual this summer, and that will be a cheaper way of providing summer education. Maybe not as good as face-to-face, but it will be less cost. And then we made a few other small $10,000 adjustments to a couple of other lines. So, but those were the main things to get us down from the 281 to the 225.
Okay, are you all set with the presentation? If you can stop sharing the presentation, then I can see people if they have questions. All right.
Did I do it?
Yep. Good job. All right. Questions from the Budget Committee?
Yes, Chairman Dowd?
Okay. I actually, just before you spoke, I saw Alderman O'Brien, but then I'll get to Alderman Clements.
Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Donovan, Doctor, if you want to answer this, I thought I heard Mr. Donovan say that virtual summer schools, but what about special education students that may lose track during the summer? They do need to have that consistency throughout the year, and that, to me, it's a good program. It helps them advance more. So not all summer schools will be closed. Am I correct in saying that? You'll still have the special education need within that format?
We will provide services to our special education students for the summer. Most of it's going to be virtual because some of these services require the students and the teacher to come face to face, and that has presented some problems. For example, some of our kids have compromised immune systems. And that's a concern. Conversely, we've had faculty who have spouse or even themselves, they have compromised piece to this as well. Certainly, as soon as we get some more clarity on right now, there is a stay-at-home order, but also too, the district is going to be working on what we consider remote learning task force to look at our ways to reopen, but do it safely. So right now, we're looking to start the summer remotely because it's the safest way, but we can also prepare for it. It's not the most ideal. I agree with you, but it's not. But our special education kids certainly need the services, and we're certainly going to provide all we can during the summer for them. We hear you. Totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Clements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions might be to Mr. Donovan. I'm not sure, but so am I to understand that in your budget proposal, even with the mayor's $627,000 cut, that you still have 17 new staff members coming on board?
Yes. That would be correct.
Okay.
Now, a number of
only-
those are paraprofessionals, but yes, there is 17 new ones.
But they're new positions. In other words, they're not people that in other words, we didn't have those positions this year.
Exactly. That's correct.
Thank you. So I struggle with this because obviously, I know that it's important that we continue to progress in our in providing services in the city, and we face new challenges all the time. In particular, this year. However, we're facing an unemployment rate that is skyrocketing. And while I admire the fact that you were able to go through the budget and get 2.25% and still get 17 new employees, I question whether or not we should be doing that in this economy. From what I see, the math that I did, it looks like the number is about $557,000 worth of new employees. And for me, just to be honest with you, I'm going to be to cut that amount out of your budget because I can't support hiring new people. I certainly don't want to lay off people that already exist, but in an environment when we're facing, last I looked, Nashua had an unemployment rate of 15% right now. I can't justify taxpayers adding new staff and increasing the property tax rate. What I need to tell my constituents is that I did everything I could to not lay people off who already had jobs, but to rather maintain the workforce that we have and hope that the economy gets better and the city can afford to hire new people next year. So I appreciate you presenting your budget, and I wish you well for next year. Thank you.
Heather Raymond and Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. I just wanted to speak to Alderman Clemens' concerns a little bit. And I appreciate what he's saying. In this economy, it is difficult because so many of our families are struggling. But I would say that's precisely the reason why we need the supportive staff. We have to be able to reach our students, and we have to be able to provide them the services that get them to a place where they're ready to learn. And we're going to have students coming back in the fall who are not ready to learn, who have behavioral needs, who have emotional needs that are unmet. I think some of these positions are positions that we really ought to have had already, and some of them are positions that we need in order to minimize the disruptions in the classroom and provide an equitable learning environment for the students and the realities that they're facing now. So, I would really like to remind everyone that most of these positions are professionals, paraeducators, and those are some of our lowest paid and hardest working professionals. And not to say anything bad against anybody else, because I know all of our teachers are working very hard, especially now. But the paraprofessionals provide that support so that the teachers can focus on delivering the best education that they're able to. I mean, I would really hate to have our students come back with increased emotional needs and not be able to regain the learning loss that they're going to have. Appropriate supports for them. So, thank you.
I'm going to go to Mr. Garino, but also I thought when we were looking through the new positions that some of them are required by law. So I'm not sure that you can go ahead and just make a wholesale cut on all those because you're going to end up in court. Mr. Garino and then Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You make a very good point. I believe that we already have shortages, and that's the ELL teachers. And so if you make these cuts, we're still going to have these shortages going into next year. And right now, the school district is, the federal government is looking into those shortages in the ELL. So I think it would be, I appreciate what Alderman Clemens said, but it would be a mistake to continue with those shortages next year. Even though it's an increase, it's a shortage of ELL teachers as well as counselors, and those two areas are badly needed in the school district. And if I remembered incorrectly, Dr. Mosley can correct me, but I believe when we went over the budget, those were the areas that we have had shortages for years, and we continue to have shortages, and we're trying to go into a school year without those shortages, and that's why we have these increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Kelly? You're on mute. There
Thank you. I can't see myself for some reason, so I'm assuming you guys can all see me. I'm having trouble with it. I can't see myself. It's fine. I have a couple of questions. So, my first one's simple, but medical supplies is one of the things that you cut. Do you not anticipate having to actually need more if we were to go back to live school?
The medical supply line, as I said, it's cut versus last year because we had a large increase last year for the tourniquets, about 22,000. So if you take the 22 out, the cut is 14. So it's actually an increase because we're not purchasing tourniquets anymore. We purchased those once. So there's a one-time cost. So last year was artificially high. So not
Also,
really cutting.
If I could follow up, I also, thank you, would potentially have PPE covered by some other funding source, potentially federal or that if we need an additional.
Yes, yeah. Any PPE we may need will hopefully come from our CARES Act funding.
Okay. If I could have a follow-up as well.
Follow up, Alderwoman Kelly?
So the other question last year's, but I couldn't find it, so I just wanted to voice my question here. I think we gave you money for a psychologist last year. Is this the second one? Because I think at last year you were looking for two.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was, thank you for that. Am I still speaking? Can people hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. It doesn't light up, so I apologize. Thank you for that. I believe you, I can't remember, I say the Board of Aldermen for one of the last votes was like a $77,000 for a school counselor or something like that. If my memory corrects me, so we did use that. I believe that position went over to Pennachuck, our middle schools. I believe that's where that person went. I think it's split between Pennachuck and Fairgrounds. I'm not sure, but we did place that in our middle schools. Dan, do you recall?
Yeah, that's correct. We that was added to the budget at the end. We made that hire, I believe, in the fall. It wasn't right at the beginning of the school, but.
Right.
And if I could do one more follow-up, please.
One more follow-up, then Alderman O'Brien.
All right, thanks. I'm going to comment and then I'm going to ask one more question. I just want to say thank you. I know that we're always working, your last slide was especially poignant, like we're always working with less than ideal in terms of, and you're just making it work and you're doing a great job for our schools, our teachers, and our students. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The 17 positions that have come into question here, even with those, you still hit the mayor's request.
Yes.
Correct.
I think I got that. Yes. I didn't hear that last part. Correct. Yes. But I want to, this is, we're, these positions, they look new, but we've needed them for years. And that's what the strategic plan was really about. We're not adding something new. We're actually recuperating. When there was a massive, and I don't have the timeline here, but I can certainly, I think a lot of the people in the room were around when this happened. I know Alderman Dow was, when they had that massive, budget shortage. There were people that just, the city had to cut these positions. And the best example that I can use, and it's not his fault, but look at Bob Chopra. Bob Chopra wears 5 different hats. And that's where we're at with, and Bob Chopra's a great guy, but he can't do 5 director positions in one year. So something has to give. We've got kids who are in trauma. We've got kids who speak different languages who are in trauma. We've got kids that we can't even, the good news is that we have a great reputation, Nashua does. The bad news is they want to come to Nashua. So, to not understand, to understand these kids' needs is very, very important. We want to keep the kids in our schools. We don't want them out. More challenging as a result of this COVID-19 because we can't physically see them as much as we'd like. So, we're here now to present this budget. We don't know what it feels like post COVID-19, but we really are concerned about our kids. And finally, I know that the city has gone through some building projects in new development, and we need a partnership. We need some of that level of support coming from the city as well, because these kids, we still need to provide for them.
Alderman Dad, I'm sorry, if I could get one more follow-up.
Okay, Alderman O'Brien was in the queue,
Sure.
and then I'll come back to you. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Donovan, you mentioned radio batteries. I know it's a very small amount, I think $2,500. But if we're going to save $1 million, you stop by picking up a penny. So the thing is, do you buy brand new batteries, or are they not? You say the radio system in Nashua is shared with the police, fire, DPW. It's a general trunking system. Most of the radios are germane. Each division is purchasing those batteries. Do you have a battery warehouse, or is this your separate purchase through Motorola or something like that to get these batteries?
Yeah, this is not for the type of radio you're speaking of. We have a few of those at the high school level, but at the elementary level, we just use more of a smaller Motorola type thing. It's not hooked into all like the police and fire. It's a much cheaper radio, so it's replacing some of those items, whether it be the battery or the radio itself. They only cost, I think, about $500 each versus the radios that police and fire use in the thousands, I believe.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Donovan. Follow up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, some of those radios, particularly with fire, have to be intrinsic, and intrinsic means when you press the microphone, you don't want to blow up, So when you're in a hazardous environment, I don't think the teachers, unless you're in science lab, you need that. But the thing is, I just wondered if the radio was germane. Mr. Donovan, the next one you said telephones. You worked on the system. You mentioned 13,000, and again, thinking small to get to big. Could you hold the fort on that line item by eliminating the 13 in hopes that the telephone system will work?
The telephone system will work. The way it was, when we put in the new citywide telephone system, it was explained to me by IT people that know much more about telephones than I do, that it'd be voice over IP, and then we would save money on all the copper lines. You need to keep some for redundancy, but the idea was we'd reduce a lot of these copper lines. Well, for one reason or another, they haven't been reduced. We've continued to pay for them. Now, with change in IT, we had, our previous IT director passed away over the summer. We have a new person in place. I'm working with him. Hopefully, we can work together and get rid of some of these copper lines during the year, and maybe that 13,000 won't be necessary. That's my hope. But I did budget it to what we've been spending and the run rate this year. So if we can get that done, maybe that amount could go away.
Okay. Follow up, if I may, Mr.
Go ahead, Alderman O'Brien.
Interesting to get rid of the copper lines because each school building is now connected to fiber optic, correct?
Correct.
So there is not a need for copper lines anymore.
Just for one or two in case the network goes down. You need to have some way to get out.
All right. And Mr. Chairman, I'll yield. I'm sure there's others that have additional questions.
Yeah, by the way, in working with the middle school, we're replacing a 12 line into Pennachuck school, and it's used, I think, for more than phones. So, and I don't want to go out on a limb and tell you what it's for, but it's not just phones for some of those copper lines. Alderman Kelly, you had a follow-up question you wanted to ask? You're on mute.
Got it.
And then Alderman Juddy.
Thank you. Director Mosley, when you were speaking, it reminded me of a piece of conversation we had last year around the school budget. And this may be a big question, so maybe you don't have the answer right now, but we talked a lot about the out-of-district placement costs and how that is a very large line item for this district. I know we talked about, is there a way to make that better, et cetera, but I'm just wondering where we stand this year with that.
Well, that's
Alderman O'Brien, you're not on mute. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Mosley.
That, Dan, I can talk a little bit about that. Dan, do you have the number, how much money we spent this year compared to last year off the top of your head? I can't recall right now.
Last school year that ended June of 2019, we spent about 6.2 to 6. This year, we're at a run rate of about 400,000 higher than that. And the main reason for that is not only increases at the schools, but the school where we send most of our out-of-district students to went up over $20,000 per student, and we have 18 to 20 students at that school.
So the cost continues to escalate, but to Alderman Shoshana's question, Kelly's question, excuse me, that what we're trying to do is build our programs in-house. So it's going to take time to do that. That's why we propose having this alternative middle school in this year. And my hope is that we have another program at our middle schools as well. I know Mr. Dowd has been involved in our middle school project, and really what we want to do is build our own house of support for our kids. We also have our project achievement class that we're also adding in this budget as well. It's not so much what we have to start doing is really start building our programs within our district so that we don't send our kids out of district as well. We also, and some of our kids are just going to require out of district services too. So part of what we were talking about, we just didn't have the opportunity to do it this year because of the budget constraint, but really developing some partnerships with other districts to form what I'd like to see a collaborative. And that would be like a group of districts coming together to support our own out of district run by our own district for some of our kids that need those services. Not to get into the weeds too much, but we do have kids that we send across the board into Massachusetts that we can't control the costs. We're beholden to their cost increases, and that's what Dan alluded to earlier. And then the final piece to this is that we also pay for transportation as well. So if we can start to build our own programs, start to partner with Manchester's a large city, certainly we can start to think about reducing that cost of out-of-district placement. We're never going to get it down to zero, but my goal, just putting it out there, in the next 5 to 7 years, so at least try to get that I think it's at what, 6.7 million, at least half of that.
So in the middle school project at the new middle school, we are developing an area for this very thing, this
Yep.
program.
Yep.
And the way the costs are escalating, the payback could be fairly short for that addition to that middle school. Plus, there's also the possibility of bringing in students from other cities and having tuition base, which increases revenue. So there's some things going on there, but it's probably not an impact on the by 24, since the new school doesn't open until September of 23. So Alderman Jettie, did you have a question?
Yes, I have several, if I could. Number one, I'm wondering if you could explain to us how you can hire a paraprofessional for $17,000 a year. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. A first-year paraprofessional in the district, the base salary is 17,000.
Yeah, when
Hardly
we say
seen-
that they're low paid, they weren't kidding.
We're in contract negotiations with them right now.
Okay. It hardly seems like a living wage to me, but number two, are we getting any reimbursement from all of this COVID-19 money that the federal government and the state is providing, and is that were you able to work that into your budget somehow?
We are receiving approximately 3.3 million under the CARES Act from the federal government for Nashua School District. That is going to be treated like a grant. So we need to, any money we'd like to spend out of that grant, we have to put it into the grant, get approval by the state, and then when the state approves it, then we could incur and submit for the costs. So it's going to be treated like Title I, Title II grants that we have, though it will have more flexibility. Those grants are pretty strict about what you can use the funds for. This one, more wide open. We're just now learning what some of those types of costs will be. The other interesting piece is it will run from March of 2020, so we could sort of apply backwards, which you rarely can do in a grant. And the funds will be available through September of 2021. So they're not included in this budget, but all you have to do is bring up that dollar amount, and many people come running with ideas on how to spend it. There are a couple of areas that I can speak to now. One is potentially our food service operations. That's a special revenue fund. We're losing money. We can't lose money in a special revenue fund. So we'd have to maybe fund some of that. And I think one of the other things that we alluded to students' IEPs are not being fully met due to the social issues that we're going through right now. And we're guessing that when we do get back into somewhat of a normal structure, we'll have a need to make up lots of services that we missed. So I'm assuming a lot of that will be used for those services, as well as remote learning, PPE. There's a number of different things. But just to revert back to, is it included in this budget? The answer is no. It would be, most of those costs would be incurred next year.
And if I could just add that we gave out approximately about over 2,000 laptops to our kids. We're anticipating getting them back, but if this remote learning continues, there is another responsibility that the district will have in terms of supporting our kids with laptops and technology if this continues on. So that the CARES Act is designed to allow us that flexibility to spend money if this should continue.
Just a couple other quick things. Unlike other grants that come into the city, the grants that come into the school department go directly to the school department. They don't go through the Board of Aldermen. So their spending is controlled by the Board of Education and the school district. The other thing with the food service, we usually never, ever have a problem with food service because they have federal funding, plus every time they sell a sandwich or a lunch, half of that money goes into their budget. All the free lunches that they've been providing this year is no revenue. So they have gone through their special revenue account, and that can't go to zero or negative. That's got to be replenished. Alderman Jettie, follow up?
Yes, so one last question. So you talked about the transportation budget, the cost of transportation. Since the students have been remote learning at home for the last 3 months of the school year, do we get any kind of a rebate from from First Student?
Yes, we basically come to an agreement that we'll pay them 80% of their base cost. Nothing, no extras, just the 80% of the base cost. And they agreed they would keep their drivers employed with the hope that one of our fears was that if we simply quit paying them totally, school would start up September 1st and we wouldn't have any drivers. Most of the districts in the area did pretty much the same thing. Some paid up to 92% of the contract, some paid 80 like we did, a couple paid less than that. But all in all, I think we were pretty much in the same ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up?
No, thank you.
Okay. We have used some of their bus services in delivering lunches and school packages, and not all of them, but we have done some of the bus, and their savings that allows us that 20% cut is probably in fuel costs and wear and tear and that kind of thing. So as you know, Alderman Jettie, being a lawyer, when you sign a contract, you're responsible for that amount. For them to give us 20% discount is a pretty damn good thing. Any other questions, Alderman Lee?
Thank you for taking my question. This isn't directly related to the budget, but the question that I have is about the grant writer. I know that with the city and the Board of Education are sharing a grant writer. Has that been effective? Do we know if anything has been yielded? I don't know how long that person's been hired or working. I'd just like to hear as to how much maybe they've been able to bring in.
I don't have any numbers on me right now. I know that Pamela Davy was working on a couple of grants for this year. I believe I see Kim Kleiner on the line. We hired her. It wasn't just a position that started September 1st. I think we hired her sometime in the late fall. So I can certainly give you that information. But again, I don't think time to really produce a lot of yield a lot of grant because she was she went after a couple of grants. I can't remember off the top of my head, maybe $10,000 here or there, nothing significant. I know that she was working on something with the city and the schools, but I couldn't tell you certainly how much she was able to bring in to date.
Think a follow-up?
Follow up, Alderman Clee?
Yes, thank you. And this might be for the chair. Would it be appropriate, or is it outside of the scope of the Board of Aldermen to ask for future, just so that we know how effective that position is, to be able to get any kind of report?
Who are you asking?
You.
You. You. Yep.
I would venture to say that they're willing to share with us the effectivity of their grant writer. And as the grants come in, other than the school grants, they go through us. So the ones that come into the city side, we will definitely see. So I'm sure that's available.
yeah, I would just for future reference, if that would be possible for us to get it so that we know how effective it is and hoping more for the school board as well as for the city. Thank you.
I will follow up on that to make sure it's an action item out of this meeting. Any other questions for the Board of Education budget from any alderman? Alderman Lou.
Thank you. You don't see my hand up?
What?
I said, do you not see my hand up?
Well, I have to do the budget people first.
No, I
And then the
understand.
other people.
Yes,
So
yes, no, I just didn't think you saw my hand up. Thank you. Most of my questions were answered, but on slide 13, Mr. Donovan, you talked about an assistant principal that is being hired. And I was just confused because I thought you said that in the elementary schools, we were down 2. And you were hiring 1, but then you said that so now all of the elementary schools are equitable.
Yeah.
So do they share the assistant principal? Is that what happens?
Yes, yes,
Ah,
yes. So
okay.
that is correct. I'm just having trouble with the audio. So if I answer your question, I think I said that. So right now it's New Cyril and Broad Street, and they share one assistant principal. So we have someone over there part-time at New Cyril's and part-time at Broad Street. So if you hire this person, so there's already one there, that person's going to decide on which, the administrators will decide which school they want to go to. And so that leaves one position that either that person will go to New Cyrils or Broad Street.
Oh, I see. So you're down 1 now.
Yes.
And when you hire 1, okay.
Every elementary school has a full-time assistant principal except for
I see. I thought you were down 2 for some reason. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Alderman Lou. Anyone else? Mrs. Raymond.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. I just wanted to mention how critical having that last assistant principal position will be for our district, because Broad Street has one of our intensive needs programs, and they have several classrooms in that building with students who have the most intensive behavioral needs in our district, just shy of going out of district. And so it's really important, a full-time assistant principal to help with those programs whenever necessary, so that the principal isn't always being called in there. So I think as we talk about rising out of district costs, providing systemic support within the buildings for our intensive need programs is a really good step towards helping to keep kids in our schools and not having to end up sending them out. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for the Board of Education budget? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I make a request via the chair that the presentation that Dr. Mosley gave us this evening, can the board get a copy of that?
It's already part of the agenda.
No, we
Okay.
sent that already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already on the agenda, so it's part of the record.
All right, thank you.
All right. And is that posted on the educational website?
Yes,
So-
yes, it is.
Thank you.
I hear my
Very good.
voice.
So it'll also be there. There's a direct link from the city's website to the Board of Ed website. So any other questions, concerns? Okay, one thing I want to say before we end is that I've had conversation with several teachers, and I know the teachers are really doing their best under the circumstances with the distant learning. And I can tell you from knowing many parents, kids, that they would love to have the kids back to school. However, it'll depend in September what happens with the numbers. So there probably needs to be some contingencies on A, B, or C, what happens. Like some colleges, just for instance, some school districts are going to completely stay remote. Others are going live, but the ones that are going live have the ability, to either massive testing or other things. So problem in New Hampshire is Manchester and Ashford, the two biggest school districts. The social distance kids is almost impossible, if possible at all. And if the numbers if something doesn't happen to allow it to be safe, there may be some portion of next school year which is still remote. I do know that the teachers struggle technologically savvy, and also the ones that teach the younger grades, the first, second, third grade, it's very, very difficult to do that remotely. I found that the upper grades, 5, 6, middle schools and high school, not a problem. If they have a computer, which is another issue. And I think that we have to have some kind of technological plan to get a one-on-one number of Chromebooks. And it probably can't be done in one fell swoop, but you need to have a plan of how you get there. The other thing is that I'm talking to the mayor, Alderman Wilshire and I have talked to the mayor about, we need to sort of plan ahead for budgets over the next 2 or 3 years to sort of catch up. We can't have a really bad year this year, 2021, because people don't have jobs and it's hard to pay taxes and stuff. So there's a lot of things on the table, and I know that the central office and the Board of Education will be working on that. And I just want to give a shout out to the parents that have had to become teachers on also trying to work at home. That's tough. And they now appreciate teachers more than ever. And the teachers themselves probably need, I had talked to Mr. Donovan today about, there are some colleges like Keene State that have courses in how to do remote teaching. And if we could get a hold of those and allow them to get to our teachers for no cost, hopefully, that would go a long way to helping them if we have to continue this in the fall. Okay, thank you very much, Superintendent Mosley, Mr. Donovan, Mrs. Raymond, Mr. Garino, and I think we're all set with the school budget for this right now. Tomorrow night, by the way, is the public hearing, so probably Dr. Mosley and Mr. Donovan at a minimum ought to be on, at least we get to the education portion of it, because I'm sure there may be questions from the public that would need to be answered. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to the rest of the meeting. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Yes, Alderman Gouthright.
And I just want to say that, Mr. Donovan, because I am what you call a grandmom that's doing this distant learning with my grandchildren, because I have a few children that are essential workers. And it's been really a challenge, and I'm a substitute teacher, but and maybe because it's my grandchildren, maybe that's where the challenge comes in. But it's been an experience and a rewarding experience, and I appreciate that. I look back through the years, because most of you know I've been here since '79, and I look at where we are today, and I truly do appreciate Dr. Mosley, because I've seen so many different folks in that try to get the same thing done that have not been able to get it done. But just want you to know, Dr. Mosley and Mr. Donovan, that we support you wholeheartedly. we do the best that we can because we do know that for many years we've neglected our school department. Without a doubt in my mind, I know that. So we're doing the best we can at certain times of trying to do what we can to, I guess, build our school district for our children, for all of our children, and that there's equity across the board with all the children. So my hats are off to you for all the work that you guys do and your administrative staff, really, that are superb. Because I do hear about others in other cities and other towns in New Hampshire. But I'm just saying that you guys are doing a fantastic job. I'm just going to say, please keep it up. Don't get discouraged, just continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Cartwright. And continuation and general discussion. Anyone else that wants to? No? Okay. Remarks
I just
by
want-
Alderman? Excuse me?
I just wanted to say thank you for your support to the alderman, and thank you for especially the chairman, who seems to know more about the school system than I do when I'm on the Board of Education. So I appreciate the support that you give us.
I had a 16-year learning curve, 10 on the board and 6 as liaison. So not much in the school district that I haven't encountered one way or the other. Anyone else? Aldermanic comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized for a motion?
In 1 second, I just wanted
This is
to.
table the budget.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I stand to make the motion to table R-20-23 by roll call.
Go ahead, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Clemmons?
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt?
Yes.
Alderman Jettie?
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire?
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, R-20-023 is back on the table. Fits right into what I was just going to say. Tomorrow night is the public hearing on the budget. We have worked with IT to come up with a procedure. Members of the public will be able to log on and be part of the WebEx. Hopefully, be able to be tricky to see them, and when they have questions, we're going to. It's an opportunity for the public to give us questions and concerns on the budget that get answered by division directors and department heads. It's the aldermen typically just listen because it's the public that has their opportunity to comment on the budget. And I'll be giving more direction at the beginning of the meeting tomorrow. So with that, we don't need a non-public. Alderman O'Brien, another motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my favorite one. I would like to make a motion to adjourn by roll call.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
We're adjourned at 8:44 p.m.